The pale beige envelope sat silently on the kitchen counter for 3 days. No stamp, no return address, just a slanted line of handwriting to Mrs. Allison Carter. I saw it on Monday morning, but it wasn't until Thursday morning that I found the courage to open it. That day, I was preparing for our 15th wedding anniversary celebration with my husband, Ethan, a hospitalist who had stepped straight out of the American dream. Charming, accomplished, admired by the hospital board, and adored by friends. But over the past year, he had slowly become a stranger. Distant, always blaming work, always forgetting the little things he used to remember. I tore open the envelope while still holding my morning coffee. A wave of expensive perfume drifted out and hit me hard. It was sweet, silky, and absolutely not mine. The letter was handwritten on thick ivory paper, every stroke delicate and intentional. Mrs. Allison, you don't know me, but I've known your husband, Ethan Carter, intimately for the past 10 months. I froze. The mug slipped from my hand, shattering against the imported tile floor, but I didn't bother to bend down. My eyes stayed locked on that first line. No fluff, no hesitation. The woman, the one who wrote the letter, was named Claire, a medical event coordinator who said she met Ethan at a conference in Denver last July. On the very first night, he removed his wedding ring and introduced himself as single. I read those 3 pages over 3 times. With each pass, my hands trembled harder, but my eyes remained glued to every word. Claire described hotel evenings, hiking trips in Arizona, and even a secret getaway to Napa Valley. The same time Ethan told me he was covering an emergency shift at the hospital. She wrote that Ethan promised to leave me right after our 15-year anniversary. She believed him, but eventually she realized he hadn't just deceived me. He'd been lying to her, too. He told me you were cold, obsessed with your publishing career, and that your marriage was just for appearances. But I saw your Instagram. I saw the way you looked at him in your photos, and I knew you didn't deserve this. That line felt like a blade. Not because I believed Claire blindly, but because everything she wrote, every gesture, every quirk, every minor detail was terrifyingly accurate. Only someone who had shared a bed with Ethan nightly would know those things. Claire wasn't making it up. She knew about the small mole beneath his collarbone. She knew Ethan always wore his watch on his left wrist to avoid a pressure mark on his right. She knew he was allergic to lavender-based cologne. Something I discovered after one night he came home with a rash near his neck. I folded the letter neatly, gently, as though any sudden motion might shatter me entirely. I sat down at the kitchen table in the house I had designed myself. Every detail from the curtains to the cabinets. A house tucked in the suburbs of Atlanta, the one everyone referred to as the picture-perfect couple's home. I once believed that. I once believed Ethan loved me the way he held my hand at my 40th birthday party, where he promised we'd grow old together. And now I was holding a letter from his mistress. Not a prank call, not a careless message, a confession, deliberate, direct, and undeniable. And what chilled me to my core wasn't that he had cheated. It was the way he had planned to leave me. Like a strategic move in a long-prepared game, I sat alone in my home office. Afternoon light casting long shadows across the dark hardwood floor. Claire's letter remained untouched beside the half-finished manuscript I hadn't opened in over 3 months. I brushed my fingers across the edge of the paper as if it were the last thread tying me to reality. 15 years of marriage, 15 years of stepping back, yielding, believing that quiet sacrifice was the foundation of a happy home. When I met Ethan, I was teaching creative writing at a community college in Columbus. My essays had appeared in a few small literary journals, and I was working on the first chapter of my debut novel. Then Ethan entered my life with a confident smile and those eyes that made people want to believe. He told me I had a rare soul, that he'd never met anyone who made him feel seen the way I did. I believed him. We married after just 7 months of dating. When he got an offer from a major hospital in Atlanta, I packed everything, left my job, and turned down an MFA scholarship I'd waited nearly 2 years for. We'll build a future there, he said. You can write anywhere. I tried, but between the moves, the hospital gigs where I had to look perfect and smile on cue, and the late nights where Ethan asked me to help rehearse his presentations or edit his speeches, my writing shrank, then disappeared. Every time I brought up returning to serious writing, Ethan laughed. That's cute, but have you thought about income? Don't forget, you're the one holding this family together. Writing doesn't pay the bills. At first, I pushed back. Then I began to doubt myself. Maybe he was right. Maybe I was being naive. Maybe my place was here, holding space so he could shine. I started skipping get-togethers with old friends. When my mother said I looked withdrawn during her visit last year, Ethan casually replied, "Your mom always finds a way to ruin good things." After that, I slowly stopped calling her. Once I bonded with the wife of a new doctor at the hospital, she said, "Allison, your writing is really powerful. If you ever need a reader, I'd love to help." Ethan found out, and later that night, he simply said she lives in fantasy, not someone we should be around. Then he made excuses to avoid them. I stopped reaching out. I thought I was preserving peace, but now I see. I had been quietly erased in my own home. I remember this past February when I found a curled chestnut-colored hair on Ethan's shirt collar. I wasn't suspicious by nature. When I asked, he stared and laughed. "You're being dramatic." Probably someone from there. We worked late that night. Then there was the time I saw a message from an unknown number. "Meet me on the 10th floor tonight." Ethan said it was an inside joke with coworkers. We were betting who could handle the spiciest food at the Thai place. What are you imagining? He walked past me, tying his shoes, chuckling as if I was playing the part of the jealous and stable wife. I didn't ask again. I didn't want to be the kind of woman who is always suspicious, always interrogating. I had truly believed that if I were good enough, patient enough, Ethan would return to the man he once was. The man who used to stay up all night reading my drafts and leave notes in red ink. This paragraph choked me up. Keep going. But now I knew that man had either never existed or if he had, he disappeared a long time ago. I looked around the room filled with Ethan's diplomas, photos of him with colleagues, certificates from medical conferences. There was nothing of mine, not a single photo, not one framed page of my writing. Just a woman who had spent her youth standing beside someone and slowly fading away. I stood up, took the envelope and letter, and locked them in a drawer. I needed time to think, to figure out what I would do next, but in that brief electrifying moment, like a jolt to the spine, I knew one thing for certain. This time, I wouldn't stay silent. I sat in my car for almost 10 minutes before I could step out. The early June sun in Atlanta was blazing, but I felt cold. On the seat beside me was a printed copy of Claire's letter, carefully placed inside a hard document folder. I wasn't there to ask for advice. I was there to make a planned out. The person I needed to see was Julia, my closest friend since college. She was a divorce attorney specializing in marital assets and had helped more than a few women through rough separations. But what made me trust her wasn't just her experience. It was the fact that she had witnessed me walk into this marriage with all the hope of a girl who believed in forever. Julia opened the door after I knocked 3 times. Our old habit. Same third-floor apartment overlooking Piedmont Lake. Same Julia. Hair tied high. Oversized white shirt and iced coffee in her hand. "You're here," she said. Her eyes didn't ask questions, they simply understood. I didn't respond. I placed the folder on the table and sat in the armchair near the window. After I finished reading the letter aloud, the first time I'd said it all out loud, I realized my hands had gone completely pale from gripping the pages so tightly. Julia said nothing for a long moment. Then she stood quietly, opened a drawer, and pulled out a brown leather notebook, setting it in front of me. "Are you ready?" she asked. I looked up. Ready for what? For the truth. For the moment you stop holding up a marriage Ethan has let go of a long time ago. I didn't cry. Not a single tear, but something inside me cracked. Light, like a breath breaking through after being held underwater too long. Julia helped me sketch out every necessary step, backing up all financial documents, confirming joint and separate assets, verifying ownership of the house we were living in. And one more thing, she said, looking straight at me. "Have you thought about the anniversary party?"